All right, it's your boy Logic Guy with another episode of Logic Guy After Dark. But I'm here to say that I fucked up and there were big audio problems. So this conversation has huge chunks of it missing. That's my fault. But what's there is actually really good. This is an episode I did with Sam, my friend Sam, aka at Gaussian Boner on Twitter. You all know and love him. And this episode probably was like the best illustration to date of what I hope this channel to be. We start off with the internet drama and the bants and the crazy characters that we all know and love, and we use that to talk about hopefully something a little more substantial. I thought this was a great episode. I think that the stuff that survives and that you'll hear here is like really terrific. Is really great, and that makes the stuff that we lost just all that more tragic because it's all really good. But anyways, give it a listen. I think you'll like it. This is me and Sam learning about post-structural theory from Conrad Golden tweets. Enjoy.
That well is just a lot deeper than we want to give it credit for in terms of dollar amounts. Like there is always an ideological somebody to fund all that charades going on. I just don't think we grapple with that enough.
What by well do you mean? Do you mean just money, or do you mean something different than that?
Deep pockets, like not in a conspiratorial sense. There's just plenty of money to go around to keep funding their ideas in the PragerU sense.
Yeah, here's my like insight into like the right wing. Well, like yeah, they have a lot of money. They do. They have deep pockets, but they also invest in each other. You know, there's all these pipelines that to promote and launch all of these right wing figures, and they get a bunch of losers like Blair Lynn Schenklow. Like that is not. Like she's not a winner. They got a dud with that one, but it doesn't matter because they just keep launching these people, and after their launch, that's up to them. But they just make sure there's always a conveyor belt of these guys coming out. You know,
exactly, just a fresh new young firebrand or whatever they bill them as nowadays. Like it's always somebody in that effect. And I mean, they used to train them in William Buckley's mansion. Like that was the whole thing. I wish I could say I was making that up, but yeah, this is a time-honored tradition for conservatives of just making the new conservative political operators that will eventually just get jobs in some godforsaken office somewhere.
Well, now what they do, they have one of the things TPUSA does is it recruits on campus. It's like finding talent and like telling them how to like giving them like the cookbook on how to do this stuff. And it's like they're pretty successful at it. We need organization like this on the left.
Yeah, we do really need to decentralize. Like, I think that's a key to it, is that, like, you just get, the right couple ideological guys, give them a couple $1,000 and a manual, and they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Or it's like, there's no, like, I guess there's no equivalent for us. Just a shame, because we're not trying to protect our wealth by recruiting the young and ideological.
Yeah, it is a shame that there's not an equivalent of that on the left.
Yet.
Right. Well, it's Friday night, and we're waiting for President-elect Joe Biden to take the stage and announce his big victory. We're on the edge of our seat. Sam, don't worry. I'll let you know when it's time to stand at full salute.
Okay. God bless. I have 5 troops right behind me, ready to make sure I do it properly. I'm in my full blues right now. God bless the troops.
All right. I'm disappointed to hear there's only 5 troops there, but it will have to do. Is your American flag properly folded in the correct American way?
That's right, and properly dusted this morning by the cleaners that we hired to do it, because no American hands could touch the thing.
Thank God. I'm polishing my bugle. Not a euphemism. to go into full taps when after President-elect Biden's speech is done. I will say we're being sarcastic, but I will feel a lot better when this thing is called.
Yeah,
I'm on edge.
The Trump campaign like angled it as it's mourning for America, like right at about the start of May, trying to like kind of downplay all the coronavirus nonsense. And I hate to borrow that, but like the idea that, you know, this Trumpian nightmare is kind of on its last legs, knock on wood, like there is a bit of relief in that. Now we're going to still have to battle it out for a month. What is it? Bush didn't take the presidency till the 12th, right? Like there was a whole
take the presidency,
not take the president. What is it? Be declared the winner. That's what I should say.
Oh, like president-elect. I don't remember specifically, and I'm old enough that I voted in that election. I don't even remember. I voted for Ralph Nader in that election.
You know what? The more I read about Ralph Nader, the less like I would hold people in contempt for doing that, because there's a lot of like, I guess like heft to what he was doing back in the day. I didn't know. Like it took me a long study. I always thought he was just that guy. Like, you know,
that's how I felt, because I never even heard of him. And he comes out, he's running this campaign, and you're like, who's this guy? And you read about him, and you're like, this dude's awesome. And he ran not just a great issue oriented campaign, but back then we were all really dumb, so we thought he had a chance. It seemed like because he was consistently polling over that 5%, that was doable. And then of course he shit the bed and came nowhere near it.
Which I think that's like, you know, the kind of the story that's always been around him, right? Like it's always almost there, and then Ralph Nader gets a W.
That was the only time he was almost there.
Oh wait, I thought he ran for president like tons of times.
He did, but that was the only time that was the closest he came, and he was at I remember vividly 2.7%. But what a lot of people don't know, and I always forget this actually. So he ran for president 2 more times after that, but he actually split the Green vote. So because he didn't run on the Green Party those years, he ran, I guess, just as an independent, and then the Green Party nominated their own candidate. So he acted as a spoiler for the Green Party in 2 subsequent elections.
He split the total 500 votes going to that party back in 2000. What a powerful man!
Yeah,
like those count to those people. That's huge. Persona non grata.
Seriously. I might still do a doomer post. I'm threatening to do a doomer post where I take that classic. I'd like to see old Trump wiggle his way out of this one. 5 seconds later, Trump wiggles out easily. Nevertheless, but then underneath it, I'll put a picture, and it will be a picture of the current Supreme Court. Boom. Doomer post.
The freshly minted Supreme Court. That way everybody knows.
They don't have one though. They don't have a picture of the Supreme Court with Amy Coney Barrett. That's the only thing that stopped me so far.
Oh wow! You think that'd be like one of the first things they do? Like they're all about.
I would have thought so too, but maybe I just suck at the internet. But the one I could find a bunch with Ruth Bader Ginsburg in them, and then I can find Amy Coney Barrett taking the oath with Clarence Thomas, but I can't find one of the entire bench.
Okay, here's what you do, and this is just to spite like all the libs out there who follow you, is you just Photoshop Amy's face over RBJ's face. Or RBG's. Yeah.
Absolute legend.
Yeah.
Absolute legend.
The disrespect that like you would incur with that, I think it might be worth it.
Okay, wait, here this one's for Amy Coney Barrett, who I'm assuming is listening. Okay. You show up for I don't know if she showed up for work yet. You show up for work on your first day, you're wearing a Notorious RBG t-shirt. Bam! You won the day.
That's it. NPR will actually be spinning in their own 24-hour news cycle, trying to figure out how to handle that one. What is it signaling? What does it mean for the future?
That's the tweet.
Yeah. God.
That's how you be a girl boss.
That's right. Representative Ted Lieu is now in favor.
Libs owned.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna talk. Hopefully we're gonna learn a little bit about postmodern theory, and we're gonna do it from the timeline of our good friend Conrad, Mr. Bronze Swords Golden.
The only expert on the subject I know and trust.
On every subject.
That's
Mr.
right.
Conrad Golden. We probably need an intro to Conrad for the normies out there. You want to handle it? You want to try that one?
Yeah, Conrad.
Wait, let me set you up.
All right,
Sam. Who is Conrad Golden?
Conrad Golden is the epitome of every single anti-SJW video you could condense into the finest molecule. I mean, I want so much pressure inside this of just pure anti-SJW nonsense, and then place that in the back of somebody's skull, and then give them a sprinkle of zealotry, and you've got the man Conrad Golden. He came onto the scene like 2018, I think, right? We've had a couple years.
I feel like he's been around for a lot longer than he's been on my radar.
Yeah, he did just appear. Wasn't it in? I think it was it Sarah's mentions? It
probably was Sarah, Phoenix Legend.
Yeah, Legend of Phoenix, something to that effect.
Yeah, Legend of Phoenix.
Yeah, but it appeared there with just some weird, like, as if this tweet was dug out of a YouTube comment in 2014 and just pasted under somebody's tweet with no like bearing whatsoever to the relation of the topic. Just, oh, you're a feminist, therefore your idea, it doesn't make any sense. You hate women. And then
and it's got to be said that he's the platonic ideal of the anti-SJW, but he's also the platonic ideal of the reply guy at the same time.
Very important to note, yes. It doesn't come off as much as you'd think, but he has the weird policing nagging aura of a reply guy, and he fits the bill perfectly.
Yeah, and he shows up. If you're a woman on the internet who has made a grammatical error, get ready to meet Conrad Golden.
He will be there, and he will let you know not only why you're wrong, but why feminism is killing you. He's going to save you.
Absolutely. So this is I would say a fave of everyone I know on Twitter follows this guy. We're up to the minute on all his latest musings. He's always got a hot take. He's always saying something interesting. He's an absolute maestro with the English language, spinning these fantastic constructions.
Yeah, it is like kind of reading a YouTube version of Ben Shapiro, but if you slowed him down a little bit and like try to hear him without the stutters, it's impressive, really, how he does this.
Yeah, it's funny because when he types, you hear Ben Shapiro's voice in your head.
I'm glad you said it because I've been doing that for years, actually.
Yeah, and remember when he had that classic triggered Avi, and like he meant it like satirically, but it just seemed like oh, this is you lib or not libtard. He would say like, this is you SJW commie cuck. This is what you look like. But it didn't come off like that. What it came off like was this is the face of the person saying this tweet to you right now. And it was the perfect match of content and Avi. I've never seen one better than that.
Yeah, it was almost formulated, and it threw us all off for about a year because you couldn't tell if it was taking itself seriously or not at the point, because like all the formulations were there, like reply guy, anti-SJW, anti-feminist, everything you'd want, and then the appeal to Sargon of Akkad, circa 2018, mind you.
Scholar and academic and noted intellectual Sargon of Akkad.
How could I be so naive?
Right, as Conrad Golden would correct us if he were here. Although the classic Conrad would correct us.
Yeah.
Current Conrad is actually not that big. He kind of got off the Sargon train a few months back, I believe.
Proof there is reform for everybody.
All right, so Conrad Golden, anti-SJW. What was the word you used for him?
Archetypal wife guy. And
you had a great word for him. It was it's on the tip of my tongue. It begins with an E. Not epitome, something like that. Anyways,
epitome,
yeah. Conrad Golden, anti-SJW epitome, stalwart reply guy, and aspiring future wife guy.
Yep. Hitting all the marks early for just about every single like Twitter niche that we'd have.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, really, he's also like an international globe-trotting anti-SJW.
No, very rare too to be found outside of like the UK or the US. Those two don't count. But anywhere else,
he's basically like the James Bond of anti-SJW reply guys.
Yeah, he's in a league all his own when it comes to this.
All right, so he's there's one bit of lore about Conrad Golden that we got to talk about, which is probably real quick. The time he agreed to debate our good buddy Science Jangles Justin SJW debates.
Oh, that was a
And
night.
yes, and he demanded that Justin read an entire Derrida book, which was, what is it called, like Grammaticon or something like that?
Yeah, that's the book that focuses. I think that is the first book on deconstruction. Don't quote me on
Okay.
that. Not an expert in the field, but I think that's the one.
Okay, first book ever on construction, on deconstructionism, according to Sam.
That's right. Hold my feet to the fire.
Yep. So read this entire book, and we will debate it. And so Justin read the whole book, showed up to debate, and Conrad Golden deleted his whole ass account off the internet. Every single account he had anywhere.
Yeah.
He deleted the entire thing and disappeared for, what was it, 2-3 months?
Yeah, I think about in 2-3 months. I think he came back in like January.
Yep, that sounds right to me. Yep. New year, new me. He's back, and he showed up like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, didn't even want to acknowledge it. And the most like frustrating part about that whole arc is the amount of gaslighting Conrad engaged in afterwards. And I mean that word exactly, because he insisted that Jangles challenged him to the debate, and that essentially threatened him into the process, despite the fact that there are receipts, my friend, of you setting the challenge, saying I will appear on these terms. You threw the gauntlet first, and Jangles was there.
And he set the stage. He set the terms of debate. He said it was going to be about this book.
And where did he go? He fled. He's a coward. Yeah, which
great.
Go ahead.
Go on.
Okay, so
I was just going to say, yeah, go on.
We did it. Okay, I was going to point out the what is it? He keeps the banner of him as the lion roaring into the crowd, threatening them. And I never want to forget that is like, it's just the most ironic thing about this account is that like he threw the gauntlet, cowered away from his own challenge, and insists that he's the lion of it.
Absolutely. That is everything you need to know about Conrad Golden is in that story. I also like the banner because that's the Christians being fed to the lions, right? And isn't the guy standing there? Isn't that Daniel? My namesake?
I'm actually not sure, to be honest with you. That's not Laura. I thought it was a lion's den. I'm not sure if it was in arena, but it might have been interpreted to be so. I'm not an expert in the field. And if you say it, I believe it. All
right, yeah. You heard it, folks. Conrad's banner is a tribute and homage to me specifically. Dan Logic Guy. Yeah, so everything you need to know is compacted into that story. You've now got the perfect portrait in the mind's eye of Conrad Golden. Let's get into it. I'm gonna read. This is the tweet. This is it. This is the tweet that made us want to do a stream on Conrad Golden. I'm gonna read it. You ready, Sam?
Oh yeah.
If you agree that the SJW postmodern position that homosexuality was invented in the 19th century, then you cannot deny similar claims about transgenderism. This is the tweet that lit the Twitter on fire. It's from October 29th. It has 2 likes and 40 quote tweets.
A powerful ratio on that.
Incredible ratio. It has no retweets, but 40 quote tweets. Incredible ratio.
So there's so much to unpack in that, because the largest issue is that he's almost right, but for entirely wrong reasons. Because
you're the only person I know who was able to sort of unlock this this mystery tweet, because everyone just scratching their heads on it, and you were the guy who came forward, and you seemed to have some insight. So he's sort of right about something. What's he sort of right about?
So he's sort of right in that he's stolen this whole idea from Foucault, like entirely. It's just another argument he made, but he's doing it in such a dishonest way that like it almost sounds like, we just all of a sudden we made capitalism and then gay and trans people just appeared. And to an extent, yes. So like in the
unpack that. How did capitalism invent homosexuality?
Yeah. So I'm gonna pause that right there, because there's a really easy way to explain the sleight of hand going on with this. We can conceive of the idea of like the Homo sapien, right? Like that's just always
I can conceive the idea of the Homo sapien. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So that was there. We were Neanderthals, all that goodness. But the idea of man is completely separate from what is the Homo sapien, right?
How so?
The idea of man being like, this is a philosophical concept that's kind of been recreated throughout most of our canons and philosophy, that like there is the human being that is more than just the Homo sapien. There's something greater, more essential to it. Like in that
Okay,
idea.
so like the soul of man versus the Homo sapien is just biology.
Yeah, and Conrad is an admitted idealist, so he's I'm not putting words in his mouth when I do this here. So
Right. He is not a materialist. He has said so many times.
yes. So he's perfectly comfortable with that. So
He has repeatedly condemned the leftist for materialism, in fact.
And for not being materialist enough, because apparently he understands materialism better than anybody else, despite having a very strong aversion to ever reading Marx. So
he's never read Marx?
He will not admit to it, but he's misquoted him entirely. And when asked to present his sources on what he was saying about Marx, you got the standard Conrad cold shoulder. Normally, he'll at least give you a Stanford Encyclopedia link, but not on the Marx questions. He's accused people of not being real communists, too, which is how I know that he's an expert in the field.
All right.
So
what we have here is isn't there specific terminology for this, because one is the concept and one is the
yes, we have you're good. We have like an ideal of it, right? And if you're working on a material analysis with that, oh god, this is officially out of my forte. So if you're working on this idea, Conrad wants an essentialized version of homosexuality that was created under the conditions of like 18th and 19th century capitalism. And Foucault goes into this very colorfully, because he starts with society making homosexuality a medicalized problem. It starts there. That's where we begin to reject the idea of like just the Christian notion of how it was that like this is just devil worship and all of that nonsense. It's moved into, well, maybe it's a problem for the medical field to understand.
So wait, was it Foucault who proposed homosexuality as a medical problem?
No, he went back and just wrote the history of that. He's
okay.
Like one of Foucault's biggest strengths is going back into history and kind of just capturing the lineage of how things changed over time. He does this with disciplinary societies. He does this with medicalization. He does this with madness. All sorts of this is just his wheelhouse. He really became the pioneer in this field. And it was actually an essay from Nietzsche, and Untimely Meditations, where he found really like the spark to start doing this, and it made his bread and butter. Like just reading some philosophy on that, and he's done us a great service for it. So,
okay, so he's telling us the history. This is probably the history of like the 19th century, right?
Yeah.
Of kind of pathologizing homosexuality as a medical problem, as a medical condition.
That's where he starts. Yeah.
Okay.
And so
is Conrad saying that this is the creation of homosexuality by capitalism?
Yeah, it blends right into that. So you start with the medicalization of homosexuality, and then as you go down it, since it was medicalized, it can then be exploited by capitalism to create all its understandings of it. That's really the key to that, is that because we lived in a disciplinary society at the time and it was medicalized away, all the work and understandings we've had culturally into the concept of homosexuality came from that. And I'm kind of borrowing from Deleuze here on the concept of territorialization, which is just how capitalism takes over things and makes it exploitable, but ad nauseum for anything it wants, even new things. So that's a bit of my flavor added into that. So anybody who like religiously reads Foucault can yell at me in the DMs. So
okay, all right. So are you agreeing? Conrad throws out this idea like, as all leftists believe that capitalism invented homosexuality, and he's presenting it like this is like something that like everyone on the left believes, and people were mystified by this.
Yeah. Actually, to go back,
but you're saying there's actually a history there.
Yeah, this was really probably one of the first real things to come up in the postmodern canon, is that like Foucault's analysis on history and applying a narrative over it, while like reading a materialistic history of things and seeing how they transform into our culture. This was one of the earlier things to come out of all of this. And I don't really see any problems with it if you could accept that, like, this is how we began to talk about the question of homosexuality and how it entered into the popular discourse. Then all the language and all the understandings are going to be in have this at its heart, and like it's not a benefit to it, because you could still want homosexuality to be a form of sexual liberation or expression for yourself, but this is part of where it came from, is that it was understood as a medical problem first, devil worship before that. It's not just what you have now, is that the terms of the sexual identity of homosexuality is also used as a counterculture, right? We understand that, like, being gay and queer in current terms is a form of counterculture because you're rebelling against either, patriarchy or norms that we have set in place for people. And this becomes a way to kind of like set yourself aside from the terms of it, right? The terms of normality.
Yep.
But this is and this isn't entirely faux here. I'm going to borrow from a lot of philosophers, but the idea is consistent in many canons, in that what you have now is a master and a slave. And the master is the most common normalized version of what we have, and the slave is the inverse of that. The slave gets its meaning from being the opposite of the master identity, but it's defined purely in terms of the master's identity and what it's not. So even though the slave...
So you're saying that counterculture is just like the shadow of culture.
Exactly. And that's why it's ever changing, and why, punk sucks now and Johnny Rotten can be a MAGA supporter. Yep. So that's it. Yeah. And then it's not defined.
You fucking made that work, man. You brought that full circle. That was good.
Yeah. Appreciate that. So that's what we're left with there, and that is part of the problem with homosexuality in its current terms, is that it's not complete liberation. It's not exactly what we expect it to be, because sure, there's always been what we would conceive of as gay relationships back in the past, ancient Greece and the animal kingdom. But the way we understand it now is defined in terms of the version that was created under capitalism, where it was half medicalized. Now it's not. We're still trying to find out if there's a gay gene, although I don't know if that's actually a thing anymore. If we're still
I thought we abandoned that one.
Yeah, but that speaks to where it came from. That was a serious line of research for a while.
Right, yeah.
Because it was so medicalized. Yeah. So the way we understand homosexuality is in this terms. It's not,
and that was also like a justification for it, because like I remember growing up, there was this idea that if sexuality was genes, then you couldn't say it was wrong. So we needed to find this gay gene in order to like morally justify homosexuality. Was almost the implication.
And so take it right back to the central problem. We're justifying, sexuality in terms of what's acceptable. We can't blame somebody for their biology, whereas you could just have your sexuality and say, I don't care if you approve or not. Take it and shove it. It's entirely different. And that's the problem there, is that like it was defined in terms of whatever the norms at the time were set. So that's where that idea comes from. And to take it a step further, even the trans people, like the gender roles that you see trans people enter into today are questionable for, are they replicating norms of heteronormativity? And then you ask yourself, but like,
because at the same time, we're having two conversations. We're having this conversation that like, oh, gender is just a construct. It's not real. It's just a role we play. And then we have trans people mimicking the role, attaining like a trans woman attaining womanhood by playing the social role.
Mm-hmm. And that's like exactly
two kind of conflicting conversations.
Exactly. And nobody really has a good answer for what's what. Actually, I think that's why Conrad Golden hates Judith Butler so much, is because she proposed it. Like, she took that problem on its face, and I think very well, and said that, like, I am completely alienated from the concept of lesbian. I have no reason to feel like I am one or anything related to this. And then on top of that, she describes everything as performatism for trying to make us all fit into these heteronormative norms. Like, no matter what you're doing, like, we're always acting the part. We're not truly, gay, straight, trans, whatever. We're just all kind of fulfilling the roles that are set forward for us by society, even if they are countercultural ideals.
So why is that offensive to Conrad then?
So because, well, it's a pretty compelling argument. And I don't think Conrad Golden's ever even read anything about Judith Butler.
I mean,
be
if he
honest with
hasn't
you.
read Marx, I would assume he hasn't read Judith Butler because,
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ, talk about starting on the wrong end there.
Yeah, because according to him, and this is a very favorite quote of his, she is the most dangerous woman to Western civilization ever. And I think it's because she kind of calls it on the face of the problem that, all these roles that we assert for ourselves and all these like ideals, archetypes, if you want to go down that path, whatever, are all just really facades that we do for ourselves and other people and for the, normalization of society. So it's a scary question because he wants to have the grand modernist truth of, high-minded, rational individuals making the most reasonable decisions they can to get us all forward to save the human species or whatever. So that's that. And then,
I think the key that you got that the listener needs to understand is that Conrad absolutely buys into that 2014 position that feminism is the most dire threat to civilization ever, bar
100%.
none.
There is nothing more scary. I mean, we had the whole what's worse, being or having COVID or being a feminist? Which would you choose? That was a philosophical question for him.
So Conrad is simultaneously a constructionist and an anti-feminist.
Yes, entirely.
Okay.
There's actually a lot of like inconsistencies in a lot of what he believes. He'll borrow post-structuralist arguments whenever he sees fit. That's how he makes this. But he is a self-admitted naturalist, so I don't really understand what's going on behind the scenes. But this is kind of at the heart of Conrad, is being a postmodern man himself while actively doing everything he can to denounce it. Which I think that's what sells me on the Conrad Golden character. Is that like there's this flaw central to him, and he's actively trying to like denounce a part of himself, but he just can't do it. It's a beautiful thing.
So I want to circle back to something that I think will connect to naturalism, hopefully. So when you were using the analogy with Homo sapiens and man, right?
Yes.
I said that there was language for this, and the answer, like all things in life, is found on Conrad Golden's timeline. So I'm gonna read a tweet from Conrad that will hopefully unpack some of this. Conrad Golden, October 29th. So he's describing his framework here, right? A phenomenon is that which exists independent of perception. A concept is the perceived instantiation of that phenomenon mapped out within your mind. So in this structure, Homo sapien would be the phenomenon, and man would be the concept.
Exactly.
Okay, great. And then there's also the label is that which you call this concept when asked, and that's Derrida, right? Like you have the symbol and the signifier.
I think that's him. I know Foucault does that as well. I know that's all throughout the postmodern canon. I actually don't know which one that goes back to, and I should if I was an honest to God student. But yeah, that signifier and signifier. You got the idea there. I point to this, you perceive X. So,
great. Okay.
Yeah.
But then there's a third part added to it, which is the concept, which I guess is like a synthesis of the two.
Yeah. Essentially, like what you're gonna get out of it. Like it may not be the exact mapping either party had in mind, but the outcome is that. And who knows what that is? Because that's gonna be different from person to person because of the flaws of our language.
Okay, so is that framework? Is that naturalism?
I believe so. God, it's gonna bite me because I took was it kind of minor in philosophy and I can't even remember this shit properly. I would say
don't,
so.
Dude. If you just make shit up, no one's gonna know. So just wing it, man.
All right, then yeah, we're gonna go with that.
Remind me to edit that part out. I'm gonna read something from the chat here that I had some questions about that we were gonna couldn't be explained in the chat because it's not good. So you're explaining that Conrad tweet about capitalism creating homosexuality and transgenderism. And here you're explaining it to us and you're saying, yeah, he's not wrong about that, to be honest. He's wrong about SJWs because they're all libs, but still. It's not that it's invented, just altered. If we could freeze homosexuality and evaluate it as is now, it's been altered to a point that that's only beneficial to 19th century capitalism. Mm-hmm. Now it's evolved over time, but what we're left with in this moment is just this version of gays. Wait, okay, here it is. All right. So I'm asking you a question. I say, so Sam, are you agreeing with the SJW postmodern position as Conrad calls it, that homosexuality was invented in the 19th century? And your answer is, it's not his argument. This is back to the French post-structuralists.
Yes.
He just can't get it right because he won't accept materialism and needs things to be transcendental instead of in flux.
Yes.
Okay. And then somewhere along the... So then I asked this question. I still can't figure out where this question comes from. I'm like, wait, libs can't be postmodern? And you say, nah.
Post-structuralist. That's right.
They can't be post-structuralist. But postmodern, yeah. Sorry, wording. So libs, including classical liberals like Conrad, which is how he identifies, can't be post-structuralist?
No, they rely very heavily on having these transcendental concepts. Like one of the earliest needs for like classical liberalism, if we were to go back that far, is that there has to be a transcendent right of man. Like all our rights have to be outside of us and really bestowed upon
by a higher power.
Yeah. That's like essential to everything. That like this has to exist, because without it, you're left with the question, well, where does power come from? How do we have the right to treat each other like that? And it kind of throws, the baby out with the bathwater. So we're left with that if you don't accept that. So like with his to be true to his own, because his version of classical liberalism is entirely postmodern. You could call him a postmodern classical liberal, and that'd be entirely fair. But to be true to what he thinks he's doing, then he has to hold that, and that's why he can't get this right. Because when he's saying homosexuality or gay in general, he means in this moment with the exact version of like frozen for current day. But the reason he's getting so much flack is because people understand that like homosexual relationships have existed a long time before this. But what Foucault argued was that like it's altered entirely, that like homosexual now is not homosexual then, and the one we have now is radically different, and our understanding of it's created by capitalism. That's really the heart of the question there.
So you said that the concept of homosexuality is there to aid capitalism. I can't wrap my head around that. How does our concept of homosexuality aid capitalism?
So there's a couple of like really cute arguments you can make real quick, and it's stuff like what is it? Things can only exist under capitalism if it benefits it. Like, so it's only allowed to exist because it's non-threatening to capitalism.
Yeah,
that's why we shut down so many different socialist countries and stuff like that. So if there was a version of capitalism if there's a version of homosexuality that was a threat to the capitalist order, it would be destroyed or targeted by the masters of capital to ensure that that's not a threat. So that's a very basic argument you can make towards that. I don't ever find it very convincing, but what you can do from there, and like to make a better argument, I suppose, is that the form of homosexuality we have today is in part an inverse of the nuclear family still. Like, there's lots of monogamous relationships, and that's not to discount the entirety of like, polyamorous homosexual relationships, and I guess like very hookup oriented and liberal versions with non-traditional ideas in mind about sexuality. That exists without a doubt, and it's very real, and it's a form of liberation for people. But the way that you sell homosexuality in media and culture and our finer understandings of it, it's just, they're like any other couple. They're just the nuclear family, but it's, one man and one man, or one woman and one woman. And those ideas are the safe, atomized versions of the liberal nuclear family that are reproduced ad nauseum for people to understand and keep us in the same form. There's a whole Marxist argument about abolishing the family. In this current form, you're too individualized, and the way the family works is to keep you separated and, not in a union with your fellow working class, stuff like that. And that's what I think is like a much more compelling version of that argument. I'd have to, refine some words in there if it was serious, but, for what it's worth, it's Twitter philosophy. That's what you got.
Okay. And I'm still a little unclear on what the tension between post-structuralism and classical liberalism is. Like, so classical liberalism requires, as a foundation, some kind of belief in a transcendent power. Why does post-structuralism upset that?
So post-structuralism came about as a response to the structuralist.
Well, let me just interject a quick little bit of important context. I don't know what post-structuralism is.
Yeah, I was going to get into that. So
okay,
post-structuralism comes out of the this is like honest to God, like French canon. Like when people say postmodernist, they probably just mean post-structuralist. But a lot of the people they would consider postmodernists also rejected the term post-structuralist. So you can see the problem you already have. So,
okay. So if I were to say postmodernist, what I would mean is that it's against grand narratives. That's how I understand that term.
And so against grand narratives, and that like the way that we would perceive phenomena is very different. That like our understandings cannot come of grand narratives, and they don't fit an idealized version of the world, but that you'll have just a, what is it? You can't have the rigidity of everlasting truths. Instead, there's, what you experience, and philosophy is really just a form of answering the questions of today's life with the tools you have today, and that forms its own version of truth. Because you can get to the whole question of Ayn Rand tier objectivity. Well, isn't truth everlasting? And the answer is that, like, if it was, then we would have had it by now, and we need something other. We need God for that. I think I can't argue that, but yeah,
Okay.
it's just the critique that, like, there is no higher order.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that clears that up. So you can't be a post-structuralist classical liberal because post-structuralism obliterates the transcendent power.
Yeah, and it's very important to sorry, I forgot, this is like the key of it, is that language does not have a transcendence to it. So there's no way that, like, even if we could sort out the problem of the Tower of Babylon, that we can't communicate the problems correctly, that there is no objective higher language, and therefore we could create a pure form of language that could describe the truth. So, like, because of our failures of language. Sorry. So it's same thing.
No, don't.
Yeah.
Good. It's good. It's good.
So same concept. Sorry.
Something just popped into my head. I wonder if Sam Harris is aware of that, because I'm pretty sure Harris self-describes as a classical liberal, and he definitely doesn't believe in a transcendent power.
I don't think he does, and that's actually kind of ironic.
Probably doesn't know it.
Yeah, well, that's the ironic thing about a lot of
we need to tweet this at Sam Harris so he understands.
Yeah, I'd love to get in that argument and hear him go,
No one says like Sam Harris. Did you want to talk more about how language is not transcendent, or did you?
No, that's
that
boring
one?
as fuck. Let's what is it? Let's go.
I couldn't. It wasn't boring. I just couldn't follow a word of it.
That's okay, because that's a weaker area of my expertise. That's really the problem. Is that like, I know I've definitely done the readings required. It's just that, like, I'm not. I couldn't get you the right words to describe the problem exactly, but like it's there in the works. I promise.
Okay, yeah, we will believe you and take your word for it.
That's right. And anybody who knows what they're talking about and wants to correct me, you can yell at me on Twitter. I promise.
All right. And you can yell at Sam at Gaussian Boner. Is that, I have that right? Gaussian Boner? Gaussian Boner? Yep. It's like Gaussian Boner? How'd you come up with that one?
So the Gaussian curve is the normal curve. And then boner, you all know what that means. So average boner.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite Photoshop setting. So here's the next So if you agree with the SJW postmodern position that homosexuality was invented in the 19th century, I think we figured that one out. So so the concept homosexuality, as opposed to the phenomenon of homosexuality, is a capitalist invention. Then this is the second part of it that I'm still lost on. Then you cannot deny similar claims about transgenderism. Now, what I am confused about here is I don't even understand where he's going with that. Like, he's saying that like it's a gotcha, but if in fact I did accept this, I mean, wouldn't I also accept it on transgenderism? What's the gotcha? I don't. Why does Conrad? I'm asking you to kind of put yourself in the mind of Conrad. Why does Conrad think that leftists? But just let me say it for the audience.
Oh yeah.
Why does Conrad think that leftists won't accept that transgenderism is an invention of homosexuality?
Yeah. So it's the exact same thing. He put out a similar tweet that capitalism created trans people and got just as much flack. And he pinned it because he's really proud of his bad ideas. So that's where that came from. But early in the Conrad lore, he described all leftists as worshipping at the altar of Foucault, and he called Foucault the high priest of modernism, which is postmodernism, sorry. And that's actually not who that is. A lot of people attribute the title high priest of postmodernism to Baudrillard. Like, that was just a nickname they gave the guy because I don't know if you've ever read anything by him, but you can't. It's pain in the ass.
By Baudrillard. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I had that book. The
Simulation and Simulacrum.
No, not that one. The Iraq War did not happen.
The Gulf War did not happen.
Yeah, Gulf War did not happen. I had that book. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really powerful thinker because he nailed it with that. Like, the whole, it's already scripted. Doesn't matter. The Gulf War, yeah, sure, it happened somewhere, but like the Gulf War you got is just whatever 24-hour news cycle they want to give you. So, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, Conrad was upset that he got as much flack with that, and then he tried to move it back to Foucault again because he has this idea that he probably learned from a YouTube video, specifically Jordan Peterson, that everyone understands Foucault. Everyone is a postmodernist, and they're all SJWs, and they all hate everything you stand for because this is about the epitome of Jordan Peterson's intellectual bereft, not bereft.
Okay. We were gonna say something about Peterson and the Frankfurt School. What's the deal with that?
So I know what is it? Peterson specifically hates the Frankfurt School, but just to give people some background,
the Frankfurt School has been a boogeyman for the right for decades
ever.
now.
Yeah. So a bunch of Jewish refugees came over and before World War II because they were persecuted by the Nazis, and they set up a school and Columbia University, I believe.
Wait, hold on. I should have known this, but you just blew my mind. I thought the Frankfurt School was in Frankfurt.
It basically is. They're all refugees from there and Vienna.
But it was actually in Columbia.
It was in America, University. And that's the huge thing.
I had I just learned. You just taught me something. I just learned something. I had no idea about this.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me.
Okay, that's good to know. So the Frankfurt School at Columbia University. Okay.
Yeah, Columbia University. What is it? And so they appeared in America, and it was the whole idea was that you're corrupting America with this, and the postmodern neo-Marxism is kind of they're the boogeyman of it. That this is the place where it happened. This is the room where they sat down and said all white men must die. We hate the individual. You're all collective now, which is incredibly ironic because one of the earliest forms of individual Marxism critiques came from the Frankfurt School. They were adamant about the failures of state societies and vanguards to kind of ignore the actual needs of the working class and get down to the question of individualism and the treatment of the worker under a Marxist idea. These are the guys who said no, we've gone too far. So it's amazing to me that he could say that, but given the fact he only read the Communist Manifesto.
Right, but was the Frankfurt School not influenced by Marx? Because I've heard conflicting things about this.
No, they are. If you were to take Marx, they are the first people I'd say who took Marx and expanded it into a serious intellectual project or a philosophical project, rather. They took it seriously, and they kept true to Marxism in most cases and said that we're going to.
So would it be fair to say that prior to the Frankfurt School, Marxism was an economic doctrine, and post Frankfurt it was a philosophical framework?
I would say that's about right with that, because the subtitle of Capital is a critique of political economy. Marx was both a philosopher and an economist, and this is where I guess some of the larger implications for what just that means was kind of set up. I think you could argue that because it didn't really have its heyday up until the early labor movements of the 1900s. So that's these people brought it further into the dialect, if you will.
Okay, so the conservative Peterson boogeyman is that the Frankfurt School was all Marxist, trying to infiltrate society with cultural Marxism. But you're saying they were actually apathetic towards Marx.
I would say apathetic. They worked very honestly with his framework. I think they understood just the sheer depth of what Marx attempted in, and they pushed it forward into many different fields. And we're talking about lots and lots of different philosophers here. There's many different lines that intersect and things that disagree all the time. So this is just another to call it a school of thought is not exactly fair, because there's just many ideas that come out of it that are very different.
Okay. And so what does Peterson what does Peterson get most wrong about it then?
Okay, so yeah, this is really the pet project for me on this, because the term postmodern is used by this like milieu of I guess really just fear sellers, the what's left of the new atheists, Jordan Peterson, and all alike like that. What they'll go out and do is assert that postmodernism is a philosophy, and B, this is what it means. So they sell you the enemy right away. They say postmodernists think X. And the first mistake there is that postmodernism is not a body of philosophy. There is no postmodern canon. What it does is just delineates a time period from the failures of the failures of modernism. So that's the first real big key I want to highlight there, is that before like 1960, the word was just used in obscure art circles in France. The first time it appears as a serious term to describe something is a Loitard, and he writes in Volume 10, Report on Knowledge, the Postmodern Condition. And what he does is analyze.
What year are we at there?
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
What year are we at there?
We're at 1960 right now.
Oh, okay. Well, a lot later than I thought.
Yeah. Because what he kind of does is analyze like the failures of World War II and what happened. How did we get here? And they're taking the damage, and they realize that a lot of these grand ideal systems we had built. This is not him, by the way. This is not what he wrote, but this is kind of just the general zeitgeist at the time. Is that how did we get here? A lot of what we thought at the time clearly wasn't working. So we have to reinvent philosophy now and kind of just understand new things. So it kind of just sets a flag down and says, hold on. Okay, we're gonna reanalyze, and then we start getting into all sorts of different people. Now, Loitard was the first person to really try to bring it into a philosophical sense, and he wrote a book that explains the way that we use language is in competition with itself at all times. That like scientific language can never produce truth that can verify narrative language, and that was the whole thesis of the book. Because, and this is where you get the idea that we're always competing with truths. Now, he later renounces this work and goes on to say, yeah, I just made some shit up because I really had no idea what I was talking about at the time.
Seems like a lot of them have done.
Yeah, it's amazing that like, because we forget that a lot of what was going on here.
Didn't Baudrillard do that?
Yeah, he did too.
Yeah,
a lot of people do this, but like it's amazing for us because we kind of deal with the idea of philosophy as these intellectual giants and titans at the time. We forget that these are really just a couple social circles in France writing for each other and picking at one another. And they write some really good stuff in there, but a lot of this is just like a couple circles kind of bickering at each other. Like this is just mainly France at the time for some intellectuals. Now that we've had some very good work to come out of it, I can't like deny that, but it needs the context of that cultural setting to kind of be understood. So postmodernism then now enters into it, and we understand that this to be the moment where we're moving on. Like corporate democracy has suddenly shifted, and we've got wealth now. America's replicating itself ad nauseum in this weird suburban fashion. We've never seen it before. There's tons of wealth down to the lower classes, and capitalism is just kind of spiked in this because now we're really seeing what it looks like to have a fully globalized economy with a middle class to consume it and products to be commodities to be made for these people. And we're seeing it like, the hyperdrive has been thrown on this. And with that, like, this is just the postmodern age. There is no set of people who say we are postmodernists and this is what we think. And this is where, to bring it all back, Jordan Peterson gets a lot of things wrong. And he has a talk at the Canadian.
Jordan Peterson, by the way, also has not read Marx.
No, admittedly
it's
so.
Crazy how these people haven't read Marx. Like Das Kapital. I'm looking at a copy right now. It's a thin little book. Like I've read like 3 books in my life. I'm sorry, I said Das Kapital is a thin little book. I meant the Communist Manifesto. I've read like 3 books in my life. One of them is the Communist Manifesto. It didn't take long.
Yeah, it's made just to be a perusable read. Like that was the goal.
Yeah, it's not a difficult text at all. It's bizarre that these people haven't read it.
Yeah, and like Capital is very accessible, by the way. Like it's a philosophical doctrine, yes, but it's meant to be read for anybody really, and it can be. It's just
thick
intimidating.
Tune, though.
It is. You're looking at like 700 plus pages, and it can be wordy. On God, like I've done my fair share of it, but it's a slog. I will admit. But okay, so neither here nor there. So the trick that
so we're just going to spend the rest of the time talking about how many pages books have.
It's a very interesting philosophical question, you see.
Yep.
So it's at the Manning Center. That's the word I was reaching for. 2017, the Manning Center, Jordan Peterson. It's about a 17-minute clip. He goes on to tell you that you need to read a book by, I think, Stephen Hicks. Is he the guy who did postmodernism? And this is what it means. It's a really bad book. Like, couldn't even get it published academically. His second printing was his own printing company, and it's just rife with errors. That's a whole nother like podcast in itself, is just deconstructing what's wrong with the book Jordan Peterson recommends at this conference. But
when I googled Stephen Hicks, that one didn't come up.
It might not be.
He's got one called "Explaining Postmodernism, Skeptics, and Socialism."
Oh, that might be it. Is it like a golden cover with a?
Yeah.
Yep, that's the book. That it's
whoever made this one, graphic design is their passion.
It really is, and
this is an amazing cover.
The complexity. Yeah, go ahead.
This is just an incredible cover that I'm looking at here. I wish I could. I wish this wasn't audio only, because there's no way I could describe it. They should have sent a poet.
Yeah, we need somebody to be a wordsmith for us to capture the real beauty of this god awful model. So that book, like the complexity you see right now in the front cover on that, is how complex it is philosophically within the pages. It is just
they used literally every single Photoshop filter here.
They deep fried it. That's what they did.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
I don't even recognize some of these filters, and these fonts. They're terrific. I got to read this book, man.
Oh no, spare yourself. Oh, your brain cells are.
Well, you know what they say. You can always judge a book by its cover, and this one's got me. This one's pulled me right in.
Actually, as postmodernists ourselves, I say go ahead, judge that book by its cover, and go get into it. Just delve right into that bad boy. It's worth it.
This is incredible, but apparently I can't read it because it was never published anywhere.
Yeah, I think it had 2 printings. One by like somebody else that printed like how to be successful with horses in business. I know that for a fact. And then the second one was Occam's Razor Printing Company, which is just Stephen Hicks LLC. Like he just slapped the title on it. So
nice.
Yeah. But
and by 2 printings, you mean they produced 2 books?
Yeah, basically. And Jordan Peterson bought both of them and just tells people to go look for it. So
wow.
What Peterson
this is Jordan Peterson's favorite book.
Yes. No, he recommends this heavily. He tells everybody in this conference, I want you to go out and purchase a copy of this book. You need to understand your enemy. And this is what they all think. And he recommends them basically a clown car of misrepresentations of every canon of philosophy, not just postmodernism, but all the way back to medieval and the Enlightenment. Like, it's a mess. Like, even the Mises Institute, this is a right-wing college.
Yep. Von Mises, yep.
Yep. They're
named
like,
after
this
Von
garbage.
Mises, sorry. Ludwig von Mises.
So it got flack from both the left and the right for being not rigorous enough. So
this guy also wrote a book called Ayn Rand and Business Ethics.
Mm-hmm. He basically uses the philosophical depth of that book is an Ayn Rand novel, and that's just an honest analysis. Like I would say that to his face if I saw him. Hope I can one day. So yeah,
you should have him on. I'm going to have him on the podcast.
Oh my God, please do.
I mean, I have to finish this book first. I was going to have him on and just talk about this cover to his book. It's incredible.
Yeah, he probably designed it himself.
I hope he did.
Yeah. But okay, to get to the meat of it, right? Jordan Peterson, after recommending that book, says all postmodernists believe in deconstructing words. And then he goes on to use Derrida's deconstruction method incorrectly. And then, but also deconstruct, like as a deconstruction tool. So he tries to deconstruct the term, what is it? I think deconstruction, or not deconstruct. It's something dumb. But basically, he misrepresents all of postmodernism by saying it is just the tool of deconstruction. All they want to do is get to the root of what you say and prove that you're using a Western white male heterosexual canon, the classic anti-SJW phrase line. You're a white guy, you're powerful, what have you.
And then you know what they're going to do? They're going to tell you that 2 + 2 = 5. Once they got you on that, they're going to tell you 2 + 2 = 5.
That's right. They're coming not only for basic math and your lunch, but your book covers. So gird your
We should
loins,
do a.
white men.
I want to play a game where I read you tweets blind, and you have to tell me if they're James Lindsay or Conrad Golden.
Oh my god.
We're gonna have to do a sequel episode on James Lindsay.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm actually trying to get myself up to date on all his all his understanding. So I see his tweets occasionally as retweeted by Conrad Golden, but I just kind of give up on it.
Have you read his website on New Discourses or anything
I have
like
seen
that?
it. I actually read a review of his book because I was like, it might be worth picking this up so I can bitch about it on Twitter. And then I read it and I was like,
keep
oh,
having people ask me if I've read it, so I might read it too, actually.
Yeah, it's I'm sure it's okay by their standards. I imagine that, like, since he exists in this like post New Atheist milieu, it's gonna be pretty Sam Harrison bad, if I had to guess.
I think I've heard rumors that his co-writer Helen Pluckrose was like is everything he's written that's readable has been edited by her, and that she probably took the lead on it, making it. I mean, this guy's like. Just looking at this guy's tweets, I can't imagine reading a book by this guy.
And interestingly enough, to that point, and part of the review was that this book really reads like a bunch of 3-page essays all edited together. So I think you're onto something there. Like, that theory probably holds a lot more water than we think.
Well, I've heard this floated by people who've actually read a decent amount by both of them. Let me. I'm gonna read you this tweet, and you tell me if it's Lindsay or Conrad.
All right.
Okay. Maybe I'm gonna have to write a little bit about the history of feminism, especially radical feminism, and its relationship with Marxism, and how that facilitated the theoretical underpinnings that led to a place where the woke become dominant, even though it turned on feminism.
I'm gonna go with Lindsay because of the use of woke.
I feel like you're right, and I feel like that was a giveaway. Conrad wouldn't have written that much.
Yeah, there'd be a lot more quotations in there.
And also, it just would have had more character, more personality. I think Conrad is a far superior tweeter to James Lindsay in my humble opinion.
I would wholeheartedly agree. Like, James Lindsay really just reads like he's replacing the word woke, or he's taken the word jive out of all his sentences from the 1970s and replaced it with woke. Like, that's just what I see whenever I come across one of his tweets.
He's taken a script to Smurfs and done a find replace on Smurf with woke.